because you're the most perfect little man.
Hi, welcome to your Checkup, where we bring health topics from the doctor's office to your ears. On this podcast, we're trying to bring medicine closer to its patients. I'm Ed Dulesky, a family medicine resident.
I'm Nicola Rufo. I'm a nurse.
And sitting close here with us is our doggy, Ollie. Hi. Why did the blood pressure cuff go to therapy, Nick?
Oh my God. Why?
Because it couldn't handle the pressure anymore.
That's deep.
What are we going to talk about today?
We're talking about blood pressure today.
All about blood pressure. And this will be one of probably multiple episodes about blood pressure because it's a big topic.
It's the name on everyone's lips these days.
Everyone's lips. Blood pressure.
Okay. Ed.
It's so unusual because, you know, at home, she normally calls me Eddie, but here we go.
I know. Ew, who is Ed? Anyway, what is blood pressure for the average Joe?
Turns out it's a tricky thing to describe.
It is.
Blood pressure is the force that the heart exerts to push blood forward in the body to its organs.
Mm-hmm. So your blood's pumping it, or your heart is pumping blood
Forward.
Where?
It's pumping it to your brain. Mm-hmm. It's pumping it to your fingers, your internal organs, all of the organs, your kidneys, everything that lives inside of you, everywhere. The heart is pumping blood forward, most of it, and that force is basically blood pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Great.
You can kind of think of it like a hose and water in a hose, and like how fast is the water coming out, or is it trickling, or is it like a jet? Mm-hmm. But you can think of it as like that. That's basically how you can think of it.
So if a blood pressure is high, there's a lot of pressure in that hose.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes. That there's a lot of pressure in the hose and the whole system. And there are actually two numbers.
There are two numbers. Yeah. So when you get your blood pressure read at the doctor or wherever, it's usually a bigger number over a smaller number.
Yep.
And what are they called? So
the top number is called the systolic blood pressure. And the bottom number is called the diastolic blood pressure.
What do those mean first?
Yeah.
Before we talk about what a good number is.
Systolic comes from the word systole. Systole is...
You know what this reminds me of?
What?
In my big fat Greek wedding, when the dad's like, give me any word and I'll show you how that word is Greek. The word systolic comes from the word systole, which means window.
So systole is the phase of the heartbeat when the heart is pushing blood forward, and it's squeezing and pushing blood forward. And in a normal heart, most of the blood goes forward. Diastolic blood pressure stands for the blood pressure when the heart is in diastole, which means the filling part of the heartbeat. So blood is going into what's called...
So if we had our hand...
Yes, yeah.
If you kind of make a fist, or the fist shape.
Right.
If you squeeze your fist...
Squeeze the fist.
Like your heart is squeezing the blood out.
Yep.
That's the systolic number.
Right. Like if you were to take a bunch of water in your hand.
Yeah.
And then you were to squeeze your hand.
If you relax your hand, your heart's filling.
Yes.
That's the diastolic number.
Perfect. Yes. That is excellent. So top number, systole. Bottom number, diastole.
So it's your heart, essentially, for lack of a better explanation, your heart squeezing over your heart
relaxing,
resting and relaxing, heart squeezing,
relaxing, relaxing. And that's happening every time your heart beats. So this is key to move forward and
to
understanding and the episode. And it's a tricky thing, and it's often overlooked in a doctor's visit. And that's why this specific episode is very, very important, because so many people have problems with their blood pressure.
So we'll start with the basics. What is an average good blood pressure?
A normal blood pressure,
I guess normal
is
normal is good.
Normal's good. Normal basically just means like what's out there in the wild and doesn't cause disease.
I don't know why that was funny.
120 over 80. Anything 120 over 80 and under, but not too low.
Not too low.
And we won't talk about that today, but not too low. but 120 over 80 and a little under are normal.
Yeah. So what if like your blood pressure, you're a normal healthy person, they're in the office, their blood pressure is 125 over 85. Is that too high?
I look at that and I say, great, I'm happy with that.
Okay.
If you read a lot about this, you'll find that some definitions from very smart people who do this all day long and read about this all the time would technically call that elevated blood pressure.
Interesting.
Though it's very reassuring to me because when someone comes to me in that moment, my goal is to keep their blood pressure under a certain threshold or to make sure they don't have problems with high blood pressure.
There's our intern again. We told him not to be loud while we're recording. God, he's so rude. These Gen Z kids some days, you know, they don't know how to act at work.
So maybe. So then such a common piece of jargon that's thrown around that actually isn't totally well understood and there often leads to confusion is hypertension. And that is high blood pressure, but the formal medical diagnosis of hypertension depends on the society you read about, but generally it's 140 over 90 and up. Some people would call 130 over 80/90 to be elevated as well as like stage 1. But when we start thinking about having to treat or make a change in someone's lifestyle, 140 over 90 is the number that we think about. Okay. That has to be a blood pressure measurement taken 2 separate points in time.
Just 2 random points in time?
Ideally with a little bit of time between them. Like you're not sitting in the same instance taking your blood pressure, but that it's separated by some time, days.
That's a long one, Jones. Okay, so on the topic of this formal diagnosis and how it has to be 2 separate points in time, are all of these points in time like in a doctor's office? Can someone take their blood pressure at home? And does that kind of count toward the data that you have to diagnose someone?
It doesn't. It can. You'll find employment fairs where people will be walking around and like, come take your blood pressure. And that's technically a reading. That's a number. Like you're out in the wild and you're walking around or you're in a store and you see one of those blood pressure cuff things and you stick your arm in there. That can be a data point that you have. And say you get like 157 over 90 and you're there and your form is good. You took your blood pressure the right way, which we're going to talk about. That is a data point. It doesn't have to be in the doctor's office. You don't live your life in the doctor's office either. And so sometimes those measurements inherently are off themselves. And so that's an important thing to remember is that sometimes the doctor's office measurement isn't the best one, but that's the data that we have the most of. And so that leads us to thinking about having to take blood pressures at home, which we're going to talk about form soon enough.
All right. So what does that high blood pressure affect?
Everything. Because the blood pressure, at some point, the body experiences the blood pressure in every single organ that it can.
Because your heart's pumping blood everywhere.
Right.
So there's a problem at the start.
Yes.
There's going to be a problem at whatever endpoint the blood is going to.
Exactly. Right? And if you have a problem with your heart, then you have a big problem everywhere. But the main ones that we think about when I am counseling someone on getting control of their blood pressure are risks with their brain, risks associated with their heart, and their kidneys.
Those are 3 very important parts of your body.
Right. And like there are other pieces too, and they live more subtly, but those 3 are the ones that I think about the most. And when I think about the kidney, I think about preventing chronic kidney disease, which itself is a chronic illness. It's in the name, with the end point of that being dialysis. And you get people who are walking around and you don't feel these things until it's too late. 1/3 of people who have hypertension don't even know that they have hypertension. And so they're just ticking away, waiting for their brain
something bad happens.
Right. stroke or heart attack, heart failure, which we'll explain in future episodes. But all of these awful things that at the end of the day are preventable with proper recognition and early treatment.
That's why you should establish care with a primary care physician.
Dear God.
There's my plug.
Please.
Give that spiel all day at work.
Yeah, you see this all day.
I do.
You see, and you. I mean, it's the classic conversation I have with a patient in the office is that I meet so many people in the hospital who wish that they just grabbed hold of this issue before it was too late, and they took care of it when they could have. Because it's a serious thing. And I have people these days who like really grab onto that message and they make lifestyle changes. They like, and they make the changes, but it's a big deal. And it's important that we have the right information. And
I feel like once you damage something, like if you damage your brain, that's hard to come back from sometimes, or like reverse. If you do a lot of kidney damage, that's hard to come back from.
Right.
If you do.
All things that you like don't even think about happening on autopilot that in a moment or just over time can go awry because silently, I mean, they call it the silent killer for a reason. It's just taking a toll on your body.
Sounds like the next Netflix documentary.
The Silent Killer.
It's just about hypertension.
It's actually just blood pressure.
It's an episode of you telling you to go to your doctor and take your blood pressure and take your meds.
I'm really amped up about this episode.
So is anyone in particular more at risk for high blood pressure, or does this kind of just happen at random?
Definitely not at random. I will say 90% of blood pressure or of hypertension is related to, it's called essential hypertension, meaning that it just happens. But there are often risk factors tucked away in there that increase your chances of getting it. One risk factor is age, thinking kind of 65 and over. As you age, your blood vessels get thicker and stiffer, which make it harder to push blood forward and through, which increases the pressure to accomplish that task. And so age is a risk factor. Tobacco use is a risk factor for hypertension. Heavy alcohol consumption is a risk factor for hypertension. Obesity itself is a risk factor for hypertension. And so is a high sodium diet.
What is sodium?
Sodium is an electrolyte. It's an electrolyte and it's an element that...
And what do we commonly call it?
Salt.
Salt, yes.
Yes. Nerded out there for too much. Yeah. So it's salt, and it's in a lot of processed foods. It's also often added to meals and is a complete opportunity to make a lifestyle change to improve your blood pressure.
Sodium's a sneaky little guy. Sneaky little snake. So going back to when we said what a high blood pressure number was.
Right, 140 over 90.
To be diagnosed with having high blood pressure or hypertension, it needs to be taken, or it needs to be read as high on two separate occasions, right?
Yep.
So you can take your blood pressure at home, and you can buy a cuff anywhere. You can get one on Amazon. You can get one at Walgreens. I'm looking at ours right now because we have one. So I'm a pro at taking my blood pressure at home now. $1 million workup. But if you are going to take your blood pressure at home, which I feel like this is important to talk about because I don't know that everyone necessarily will, even if your doctor recommends you take your blood pressure at home. That's
like so much easier said than done. It's like, boom, boom, take your blood pressure at home.
Yeah, and there are like kind of things that you should pay attention to make sure that it's an accurate reading.
Right. Yep. Great. So, I mean, this is exactly the key piece to this, is that we're going to talk about conversations that aren't always given the full due justice.
Yeah. Like someone can tell you, get a cuff and take your blood pressure at home. But then there are certain things that you should kind of follow to make sure that the readings are the most accurate, especially if you're tracking high blood pressure.
Right. Like these are important. Like things are going to change based on this information. So we want to do it right. So when should we do this?
So you should take your blood pressure. It's first thing in the morning. Don't like eat or drink anything, especially coffee, because that will alter the reading most likely. Sitting in a chair, feet both flat on the ground, sitting up. You want to put the cuff over a bare arm. So like don't put it over your pajamas, because if you're wearing a hoodie or a long sleeve or something, especially if it's thick, the cuff can't like squeeze as tight and the reading won't be as accurate. And keeping your arm
At the level of your heart.
at the level of your heart. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm holding out my arm. I can't think of a way to describe that, but that's what it is. A lot of them now have, like ours have an app, and then the blood pressure reading will just directly upload to the app. And then if you're like showing this to your doctor, you know, a month from now or whatever your follow-up may be, then it'll be easy for them to see all of those readings. You know, it's 2024.
Right. Everyone
has an app, so it makes it really easy. I think some of them also you can like somehow set up to send to your doctor, but this seemed a little advanced. So I don't know if I got that one.
And keeping that information is super important, because I love when people show up and they have all the numbers. And so this is a common theme that we'll preach here, writing things down and keeping that information on you and presenting it to your doctor is the best way to go. The only thing I would add is that people come in all different shapes and sizes, and make sure you have the right cuff size.
Yeah, like you can bring your cuff if you're not sure. A lot of them are like a universal kind of thing, but not all the time. So you can even take, next time you go to the doctor, you can take your cuff in and they can make sure that it fits. Or you could even like test it against the like Dynamap at the office to see if they're correct. Like my doctor even was like, yeah, next time you're, you know, here for your follow-up, just bring your cuff. And then, which I haven't been taking my blood pressure every day. Sorry. Sorry, Dr. Lafferty.
Right. But it's hard.
It's kind of hard.
It's hard.
It is.
And that's a good question, is that you should, I mean, I'm not going to recommend anything here, but there are a range of recommendations to measure your blood pressure, how many times, and you should do it. You should clarify that with your own doctor. Yeah. But it doesn't have to be every day, usually. And people can often find themselves starting to get a little worried and amped up about the blood pressure. And that's also something. So try to be calm the best you can. There's always something to do, a change to be made, a plan to be devised. The best you can. Stay calm when you're taking your blood pressure.
Go to your happy place. Go to the beach. Okay, so we talked about what blood pressure is.
Yep.
We gave it a number.
We did.
And then we kind of talked about
why it's important. And
then taking it at home, because maybe you went to the doctor, or you went somewhere and you had a high blood pressure reading, and then how to take it at home, or other options to get another reading so that you and your doctor can, you know, kind of decide if this is something that you have to then deal with. So, and then since this is such a big topic, we're going to have a couple episodes. So next time at your checkup, we're going to talk about ways that we can manage the high blood pressure.
Yep. Early highlights, I'll say, are changing your lifestyle and medications. And frankly, on this medium, we're going to talk about the lifestyle changes more, because those are the conversations that often can't be had so well in the doctor's office, because it's the place where decisions are made. And
it's easy just to send a script for a med to the pharmacy, say, go pick it up, see you in a month.
And then come back and your blood pressure is better. But the real lasting change happens if you change the things that you do every day. And so the next time we talk about this topic, we're going to talk about what those things are and what you can do to improve your health overall, because odds are the things that are causing high blood pressure are probably causing other problems, and you stand to have a lot of health benefit and improvement from changing those things.
Great. Thanks to our Oklahoma listener.
Yeah, how about that? Someone from Oklahoma. This is a really cool experience where you see people listening from all over. And I mean, if you tuned in, Oklahoma listener, whoever you are, make yourself known. Yeah. Leave a comment.
Special shout out.
Send us an email. Your checkuppod@gmail.com. It's in the show notes. Your special shout out to Oklahoma listener. Wow, that's great. And thankful for anyone who's come to listen. And you know, we're trying to make this relevant for you, a loved one, or
a neighbor.
Exactly.
Justice for the neighbors.
Justice for the neighbors. And that you can become a little more understanding of what other people are going through. And so I think we probably hit a lot of people today with this blood pressure talk. And so Share it with your family. Share it with your friends. Have conversations with people about blood pressure. Yeah.
Like your dad that won't take his blood pressure meds or take his blood pressure at home.
Exactly.
Go tell him Ed and Nicole sent you.
Listen to your checkup and hopefully you giggle along with us. But thank you so much for coming back again. This was an important episode that we're going to continue to have conversations on. In this like adult health series, we're going to talk about diabetes too, and a bunch of other stuff. So diabetes. And so make sure you subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please do. And if you subscribe, you'll be notified when we publish a new episode, which is great. And you can visit our Instagram at Your Checkup Podcast. And most importantly, stay healthy, my friends. Until next time, I'm Ed Dulesky.
I'm Nicole Rufo.
Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.
This information may provide a brief overview of diagnosis, treatment, and medications. It's not exhaustive and is a tool to help you understand potential options about your health. It doesn't cover all details about conditions, treatments, or medications for a specific person. This is not medical advice or an attempt to substitute medical advice. You should contact a healthcare provider for personalized guidance based on your unique circumstances. We explicitly disclaim any liability relating to the information given or its use. This content doesn't endorse any treatments or medications for a specific patient. Always talk to your healthcare provider for complete information tailored to you. In short, I'm not your doctor.
I am not your nurse.
And make sure you go get your own checkup with your own personal doctor.